Ladies and gentlemen, it's been 20 years since I stood in this very place as the Arkansas State Treasurer and introduced Bill Clinton for the very first time as the next President of the United States. But back then I only had a minute, so I couldn't say everything I wanted to. So right now I'm going to correct that, if you'll just bear with me. Bill Clinton was born 65 years ago in a place called Hope. And after leaving Arkansas for his education, he did two very smart things. First, he came home, and second, he brought Hillary with him. Today, we all remember what a remarkable leader he was as president. But I want to remind all of you what he did here in Arkansas as our Attorney General and Governor. Our economic growth had surged ahead of the surrounding region. Education reform became a model across the country, thanks in no small part to Hillary. There were sweeping legislative reforms, and by the early 1990s, his colleagues ranked him as the most effective governor in the country. "20 years ago, Arkansas did something very, very generous. We decided to share the Clintons with the rest of the country. So today I want to do a little bragging about our generosity. I want to recognize Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea for everything they've done for us and everything they've accomplished since. On behalf of all of us here and all the people across the state of Arkansas, I simply want to say thank you."
Ladies and gentlemen, former Secretary of Transportation, Rodney Slater.
Thank you. Well, I've known Bill Clinton for a long, long time. When he was governor, when he was president, and I know what he has done since as a private citizen on the global stage. We have him to thank for the Clinton Library. We have him to thank for the Clinton Foundation. And by the way, I hope all of you will support the Clinton Foundation. But one thing has been consistent throughout all his life. He has sympathized with those who needed a hand up, figured out how we could all work together to turn things around, and then got to the job of getting the job done. We all know that this actually has framed his presidency. The longest economic expansion in American history, with 22 million new jobs. The largest budget deficit in the nation's history to date, converted into the largest surplus. The lowest crime rate in a quarter century, with 100,000 new cops. And the lowest poverty rate in 20 years, and higher incomes for the middle class. The lowest government spending in 30 years, and the lowest income tax burden in 35. But when we stood here together 2 decades ago, the country did not know this yet. The nation was in a bind. The economy was faltering. and we didn't have a vision for the future. The Cold War had ended, but we were not sure what America's role would be going forward. Democrats had lost 5 of the last 6 elections, and many believed that the progressive movement had lost its way. We were literally in the wilderness. At least we were, until Bill Clinton announced his intention to seek the presidency in October of 1991. The election of 1992 marked a turning point, both for Democrats and for the country as a whole. The Clinton-Gore campaign rose above the stale arguments that had defined 20th century American politics, and they mapped out a specific plan for tackling the challenges of a new century, the 21st century. We centered our agenda on 3 themes: opportunity, responsibility, community. And we framed a vision for the country that spoke to the hopes and the challenges and the aspirations of the forgotten middle class. Nearly a century before, Theodore Roosevelt had been the beacon that led our country from farm to factory. He had turned the page from the 19th century to the 20th century, showing Americans the way forward at a time when everything was changing. 20 years ago, Bill Clinton did the same thing. As America and as Americans were moving into the information age, here in Arkansas, on these steps, we began the country's work of building the bridge to the 21st century. And yes, we have Bill Clinton, President Clinton, to thank for leading us there. Credit goes to everyone who was here then, so many of you who have returned to celebrate this day. And Mr. President and Secretary Clinton, this is a day to be proud. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Ragin' Cajun, James Carville.
I see why the Razorbacks welcome Texas A&M into the SEC. Can I get a pig suey out there anyway? Go Tigers. Let me tell you something that this day is not about. It is not about nostalgia. Nobody's head is filled with visions of nostalgia. This is a day about pride. All of our hearts are full of pride. Pride in many things. Pride in the people that we work for. Pride in the kind of president and the presidency that President Clinton had. Pride just not about his accomplishments and his brilliance, but pride about his humanity is evidenced by the unbelievable work that goes on in the Clinton Foundation and the CGI all over this world. Pride in Secretary Clinton, who had tenacity and grace and charm and brilliance as First Lady, who's become one of the accomplished diplomats of our generation or any generation. And who symbolizes something even deeper and more meaningful. I can assure you, as the father of two daughters, a 16 and a 13-year-old, other than their mother and their Aunt Maria, no female has helped shape their lives, given them more inspiration, more example, and more hope than Secretary Hillary Rodham Clinton. So, Secretary Clinton, on the behalf of all of the daddies, of all of the little girls in the world, we say thank you. Unbelievable pride in the people that we worked with, in the city, in the people that we worked around. Some of the people that we work with are some of the most remarkable, talented people that anybody ever had the privilege to work around. And many of them have gotten magnificent life achievements. There's one that we're particularly proud of that exemplifies what it means to be public service and what Bill Clinton means, and that's our dear friend, the current mayor of the great city of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel. But the camaraderie that we had and the things that we did and the people that I had a chance to work with are something that I'll live with pride, not nostalgia, but pride for the rest of my days. And the thing that I really loved were our traditions. And we had a lot of quirky ones. We had gold stars and broken eggs and black gloves and you name what it was. And I think we did exemplify the Clinton values of inclusion and the Clinton values of tolerance and the Clinton values of not being hierarchical and respecting other people and respecting other opinions. But we had one tradition that I was so reminded of last night when we had our reunion, and people would come up and say that, you know, my mama, my daddy never forgot that. And we always, in any time that anybody's parents ever came into the war room, they were accorded a standing ovation and a personal tour. And you know, what I think about is this. No matter how many titles you acquire, no matter how many miles you travel, no matter how many dollars you make, in the end, it comes down to this. It's all about mama. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Vice President Al Gore by telephone.
I'm so proud of the part I was allowed to play in this historic undertaking, and all of us together accomplished so much during the time that we were able to work together. And I hope you're as proud as I am grateful for your service. And a lot of people may not fully remember what it was like back 20 years ago. Our country at that time, before the new policies we put in place, was really headed in the wrong direction, and the old ways of doing things were no longer working, and we were falling further behind. Democrats had lost 5 of the previous 6 presidential elections. And so President Clinton, with your help in mind, struck out on a new path. And we were determined to turn the progressive movement around in the right direction, and we had faith that we would put our country on the right path. And just as we saw Teddy Roosevelt in the history books lead the United States from agriculture to an industrial economy at the turn of the 20th century, those of you gathered here in Little Rock ushered us into the 21st century. It was a great adventure that unlocked the potential of the information revolution and expanded opportunity to millions at home and around the globe. You helped rekindle the ethic of responsibility and taught people that there was a way to make government work the way it's supposed to work. You helped us become a voice for the forgotten middle class, the legions of Americans who, as Bill Clinton always said, work hard, play by the rules, and deserve the chance to give their children a better future. You helped us reinvent government so that we served everybody better through times of crisis and everyday need. And so together what we achieved was something really remarkable, in my opinion, the longest economic expansion in the nation's history. Bill Clinton's going to be remembered for that and more. Millions moved from welfare to work. Record low unemployment for everyone, especially including African Americans and Latinos. Millions of acres preserved for the environment, the most stringent air pollution standards in our history. We shaped a more efficient government with fewer unnecessary regulations, but we kept the ones that were necessary and made them work well. We accomplished what we set out to do, and as Bill Clinton put it so memorably, we built a bridge to the 21st century, one that everybody could cross over. President Clinton used to say, there's nothing wrong with America that can't be fixed by what's right with America. And I know as you do that we're going to succeed in the next 20 years with the same determination by believing in opportunity for all, responsibility from all, and knowing that we are part of a larger community. I hope that you will keep on working as President Clinton does every day. I know I will, to make sure that we fulfill the promises that we put before the American people in 1992. Our future is still being built, and Bill Clinton helped us all work together to make a brighter future. So enjoy the reunion. Thank you for all that you have done and all that you're going to do. And have a great time. Thanks a lot.
When my father announced his campaign for president, I had already cast my vote in favor of his candidacy a few weeks earlier over our family breakfast table. It is a memory I treasure, as it is a privilege I never had at the ballot box. In October 1991, Americans were asking profound questions at the core of our national and personal identities that were clear even to an 11-year-old. I remember watching television with my parents as the Berlin Wall fell, and as American men and women in uniform risked and gave their lives in the Persian Gulf. I remember my parents talking at home about how there were too many children in our country that did not have the opportunities I had, and that too many people and too many parents worked too hard without sufficient reciprocity from their government. My parents always asked me what I thought, listened to my opinions, and shared their ideas for how to build a more equal and prosperous country. I always felt part of their call to serve, and I was always proud to be part of my father's journey. Grounded in the themes my father spoke about on October 3rd, 1991, opportunity for all, responsibility from all, and a community of all, the Clinton-Gore campaign reimagined and codified a new and enduring progressive agenda focused on preparing the United States and all Americans for the challenges of the 21st century. By speaking to the hopes and dreams of what my father termed then the forgotten middle class, the 1992 campaign connected with the pulse of our country and the promise of our dreams. In the White House, my father, many of you here, tirelessly worked to build a safer, healthier, more prosperous, and more equitable America and world. Today, he continues to work as tirelessly as a private citizen, public advocate, and inveterate problem solver to help move us ever closer to our more perfect union. I am deeply grateful for my father's service, deeply grateful for the campaign that gave him the opportunity to serve, deeply grateful to all of you who joined in that campaign, joined in the White House, and have joined in the work since. And most of all, I am deeply grateful to be my father's daughter. Thank you, Dad.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have the high honor and the great privilege of introducing Chelsea Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and our governor and the next president of the United States, Bill Clinton.
In 1963, aspiring young leaders from communities across America gathered at the White House to meet President John F. Kennedy. Among them, 17-year-old Bill Clinton from Hope, Arkansas. No one knew this handshake would mark a passing of the torch from one generation to another. After graduating from Hot Springs High School, Bill Clinton left Arkansas to study at some of the world's most prestigious institutions. And then this young man from Arkansas did something unusual. He headed home.
During all the years I was away at college and in England on the Rhodes Scholarship and at Yale Law School, I never intended to do anything but come home to Arkansas and do what I'd wanted to do since I was a boy. To be in politics and put what I'd learned to use here, to work with the people I'd grown up with to help make this state the kind of place it ought to be.
With Hillary's help, Clinton began his career in public service. First as Arkansas's Attorney General.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Attorney General in Arkansas is not only the lawyer for our government, he is also the guardian of the people's interests.
We've had the most active and successful year the Office of Attorney General has ever enjoyed. I've got a fine, hard-working staff. Together we've done our job for the state, giving more legal advice and opinions than ever before.
And eventually, as governor.
15 times since 1974, 15 times, my name has appeared on the ballot in Arkansas. And I think this is the best.
His values helped Arkansas grow economically and transform the state's education system from one of the worst in the nation to one of the best.
We have made, I suppose, more dramatic progress in education in the last year and 2 or 3 months.
Bill, I think, studied very closely what was going to be happening in the future and understood that times were changing and that the kinds of economic opportunities that would be available for not just our state but for our country would be much more directly linked to the type of education that people received. And so he began reforming and improving our education system so that we could become competitive.
We've got more courses, higher test scores, the South's lowest dropout rate, nationally praised reforms that have helped us recruit new jobs. I spend a lot of my personal time trying to bring jobs to Arkansas. But if you want to get good jobs in here, you have to be able to say, if you're governor, my folks are well educated, they're smart, they work hard, and they can learn anything in the world.
While Arkansas was thriving under Clinton's leadership, the nation was at a crossroads. The country's old industrial base was struggling to compete in a global economy. Middle-class families were working hard just to get by. Even the stability that washed over Europe in the decades after the Second World War was beginning to fall apart. And so, on October 3, 1991, Governor Bill Clinton stood on the steps of the Old Statehouse in Little Rock and announced that he would run for president.
I refuse to be part of a generation of Americans that celebrates the death of communism abroad with the loss of the American dream here at home. I refuse to be part of a generation of Americans that fails to compete in the global economy and so condemns hard-working, middle-class Americans to a lifetime of struggle without reward or security. That is why I come here today, because I refuse to stand by and let our children become part of the first generation of Americans to do worse than their parents. I don't want my child or your children to grow up in a country that is coming apart instead of coming together. And that is our generation's responsibility, to form a new covenant, more opportunity for everyone, more responsibility from everyone, and a greater sense of common purpose. Make no mistake, this election is about change. Change in our party, change in our leadership, change in our nation. And that is why today I proudly announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
The campaign that followed was grueling. But Bill Clinton offered a new vision for the country and a new brand of progressivism, and ultimately, he prevailed.
My fellow Americans, on this day, with high hopes and brave hearts, in massive numbers, the American people have voted to make a new beginning.
With the team they brought together, the Clinton-Gore administration turned the country around. 22 million new jobs, 7 straight years of income growth, the only 4 consecutive budget surpluses in the past 80 years, 100,000 new cops, millions of people moved from welfare to work, record low poverty rates for African Americans and Hispanics, the creation of AmeriCorps, the Family and Medical Leave Act, 2,000 charter schools, 16,000 pages of unnecessary federal regulations eliminated, peace in Northern Ireland and the Balkans, a spike in international trade, the expansion of NATO. After 8 years in office, the old questions about whether progressive politics had run their course were a thing of the past.
My fellow Americans, the state of our union is the strongest it has ever been.
The new question was how the governing principles of the Clinton presidency could be replicated around the world. And for Clinton himself, the question was how to translate his commitment to opportunity, community, and responsibility to his new role as a private citizen. With Hillary now picking up the mantle of public service, the family moved to New York, and Clinton opened the Clinton Foundation offices in Harlem. The foundation immediately set to work helping entrepreneurs in the surrounding neighborhood, but President Clinton's vision extended beyond Harlem's borders. He began working to address some of the biggest problems facing our world.
We try to do what's most effective, and we try to respect the people with whom we work. Even governments with all their resources often fail to effect social change. By and large, you will find that intelligence and ability, aspiration, they're all evenly distributed across the society, but organization, investment, and opportunity are not. So we're there to provide the connection between people's efforts and actions and positive consequences.
Over the past 10 years, thanks to the work of President Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, 4 million people are benefiting from life-saving HIV/AIDS treatment. 12,000 schools are building healthier learning environments. 26,000 micro-entrepreneurs, small business owners, and smallholder farmers are improving their livelihoods and communities. 2.2 million tons of greenhouse gases are being cut or abated in some of the world's largest cities. Since opening in 2004, the Clinton Presidential Center has sparked more than $2.5 billion in economic development in Little Rock, Arkansas. And disaster-affected regions are building back better. President Clinton has also redefined the way we think about giving and philanthropy through his Clinton Global Initiative, whose members have made more than 2,000 commitments that have already improved the lives of 300 million people in more than 180 countries. Bill Clinton's life has been the quintessential American story.
Nearly half a century ago, I was born not too far from here in the little town of Hope, Arkansas. To my dear mother, who was already a widow for 3 months. For 4 years, I lived with my grandparents. They didn't have much money. Nobody did in Arkansas at the end of World War II. Now, it's a long way in America from the family that lifted me up and taught me to live with my failures and disappointments and get up again and again and again.
Because of his story, we've been able to build a world with more opportunity, greater responsibility, and a stronger sense of our shared community.
I believe with all my heart that together we can rekindle that American dream. We can usher in a new era of progress, prosperity, and renewal, an era of opportunity greater than anything any generation of Americans has ever known. I ask you to join with us today, to give me your hands and your hearts, to give me your prayers and your help. I believe that together we can make America great again. And with your help, your heart, your devotion, and your efforts, we can build a community of hope that will inspire the world. God bless you, and thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President Bill Clinton and Secretary of the State Hillary Rodham Clinton.
First, thank you for being here. I want to thank my friend of so many years, Jimmy Lou Fisher, for introducing me 20 years ago and for being here again. Thank you, Rodney Slater, who come the first of the year, we will have been together for 30 years, for his service in Arkansas and in Washington. Thank you, James Carville, for getting our heads straight for the day and for keeping your eye on the ball and never quitting when people told you it was a lost cause. I want to thank Chicago for playing for us and for playing for us again tonight. I want to thank Fleetwood Mac for Don't Stop Thinking About Tomorrow. Mick Fleetwood actually sent us a contribution to support this reunion weekend. I want to thank Al Gore for calling in, for being the best vice president this country ever had. He was great. I'd like to thank my daughter, who was here last night and had to leave this morning, for that great film and for a wonderful lifetime of reminding me what politics is really all about. And I want to commend President Obama for appointing the best Secretary of State I can imagine. You know, I've had a great time these last 10 years being a has-been and watching Hillary be a senator and run for president, be Secretary of State. When we met many, many years ago, 40 plus to be exact, as soon as I got to know her, I thought she was the most gifted person in my generation. I still feel that way, and I'm very proud of her. I was doing really well till I watched those films. And in spite of what Carville said, I feel just a little nostalgic as I look at all of you here. George Washington said once that he had gone blind in the service of his country and had to use spectacles. So have I. I want this anniversary weekend more than anything else, for those of you who were a part of it from the beginning, to be a day of thanks from me to you, of gratitude on all our parts for the chance we had to serve and to do something for our country that has done so much for us. And for the young people of America, of reassurance and rededication to the idea that we absolutely can get out of the fix we're in and be better than ever. I am very well aware that the videos you saw, and especially the litany of achievements at the end, would never have been possible without my family, my friends, my staff, my fellow Arkansans, and people all across America who helped me, including people I had known for many years. Someone said to me once that I may have been the only person in the history of the Republic ever to have been elected president because of his personal friends. And I took it as a great compliment. I thank you all from the bottom of my heart. 20 years ago, we set out on this great journey in a remarkable time, knowing that after the next presidential election, whoever was elected would be the first to serve a full term in the aftermath of the Cold War that cast a pall over the victory in World War II and shaped so much of what people in America, in the former Soviet Union, and all over the world did in organizing their lives for decades. It was obvious, as you saw in the film, that we had to rekindle the American dream. We had to build our economy in a way that would give us a bridge to the new century. We had to do it in a way that would keep America the world's leading force for peace and prosperity, for freedom and security. And we decided to go forward with some very simple ideas. The most important of which was that we should put people first. That the idea of opportunity for all, responsibility from all, a community of all Americans was way more than a slogan. It was in direct opposition to the idea that government would mess up a two-car parade and you'd be better off on your own with a winner-take-all strategy. Didn't work very well then, and it hasn't worked very well since. We believed that invest and grow economics was better than trickle-down economics. We believed that even if those of us who have it had to pay a little more in taxes, balanced budgets today were better than burdening our children with unconscionable debt for generations to come. Those beliefs gave us a whole new direction in policy. A budget that actually reduced the debt while cutting taxes on lower income working families, so no one would ever have to work and raise children and still be in poverty. And that one budget lifted more than 2 million children out of poverty, the very first one. We believed that we had to dramatically increase our investments in education and information technology and science and biomedical research. We believed that trade could be a positive, not a negative for America. After all, we only have 4% of the world's people. We've got to sell something to somebody. But we believe in trade and enforce. And when we forgot the enforce, we got in a whole lot of trouble. We believed America could be a great manufacturing country again. And after years of decline, in 6 of the 8 years I served, we actually had a gain in manufacturing jobs, something I remain proud of and look forward to happening again. We believe that the most important job in any society is raising children. That's what the Family and Medical Leave Act was all about, enabling people to succeed at home and at work. If you fail in either one, you're going to fall behind and be disappointed. It's a very important principle we need to work for again. We believed in the children's health insurance policy and in slowing the inflation in medical costs. Those 8 years were the only time in 30 years when health care costs have not gone up at 3 times the rate of inflation, and we actually increased the number of people who had medical insurance before I left. And we believed you could improve the environment and the economy at the same time if you did it in the right way, and I still believe that. I think it's a good thing, not a burden on the economy, that 43 million more people were breathing clean air when I left than when I started. It struck me as a pretty good thing. And we believed we lived in a world where we needed more friends and fewer enemies, so we built all these networks of cooperation with the Asia-Pacific region, with our neighbors in Latin America, expanding NATO to take in our former adversaries, all kinds of networks of cooperation. All we basically did was what we were supposed to do. For 235 years, things have been changing and Americans have confronted new challenges, and they just sort of saddled up and did what they were supposed to do. With barely any precedent anywhere in the world, our founding fathers actually created a democracy that was strong enough to meet the challenges of each new era and limited enough to avoid the kind of abuse of power that our founders were running away from. We've survived a Civil War, a Great Depression, 2 World Wars, relentless waves of social and economic change and harsh social conflicts, to emerge just as the people who started us intended, a more perfect union, where we widen the circle of opportunity, deepen the meaning of freedom, strengthen the bonds of our community. Every year it seems that more and more people we used to think of as too different to accept become part of us and are no longer part of them. So now the big challenge to our more perfect union once again is a terrible economic crisis, more different and deeper and more difficult than the one I faced. And it's about way more than money. I'm looking out here at some people I see I've known all my life. Most of us didn't have much when we were kids, but most of us never doubted that no matter what happened, we could support ourselves. No matter what happened, even if we didn't have a big trust fund, we could make a living, put food on the table, feed our kids, send them to school, have clean clothes on their back. This is about more than economics. This is about human dignity. I think that's really important. So when we have one of these so-called recoveries where GDP grows and 90% of the gain goes to 10% of the people and 40% goes to 1%, and every year there are more and more people who are robbed of that dignity, that is not the American dream. I was thinking the other day, I tried to make a list of everything I'd ever done to earn money, and my memory's not what it used to be. I mowed lawns when I was 12. I went to work in a grocery store when I was 13. The guy I was working for let me set up a small business on the side. It was a fool's errand. I sold all my used comic books. How stupid. They'd be worth $200,000 today. I made about 30 out of it instead and thought I was the richest fellow I knew. And by the time I'd gotten out of law school, I'd done a dozen other things to earn money. And I never made much money at any of these jobs, but I learned something from every one. I learned something about the work. I learned something about the people I was doing business with. I learned to give people their money's worth, both my employer and their customers. It was all part of dignity. So when I went out, it didn't matter. If I lost an election, I thought I could make a living. Too many people have been deprived of that dignity. And not just our fellow Americans. It's estimated that almost 300 million people around the world today are aggressively and desperately looking for full-time work so that they can support their children. I say that because I think we face a momentous choice today. If we want national prosperity and personal dignity, we have to decide whether it can best be strengthened by yet one more assault on government as the source of all of our ills, or by building a partnership between our private economy and a smart government to build shared prosperity. You know where I come down in that debate. There's not a single example on our planet today, not one, where an anti-government strategy has produced a vibrant economy with strong and broad-based growing prosperity. But we had 8 years in the United States where a smart government in partnership with the private economy produced a lot of shared prosperity, and it can again. That's how we had 22+ million jobs and a 40-year low in unemployment and a real increase in income for middle-class Americans. And most important to me, in the second 4 years when the labor markets got really tight, the first time in 30 years we had 4 years in a row where the bottom 20% of working families' incomes in percentage terms rose as much as the top 20%, and 100 times as many people moved out of poverty in those 8 years as in the 12 years before or the 8 years after, because we had a partnership. Now it's tougher now. For one thing, the financial collapse that occurred in September of 2008 was the tail end of a bad economy, not the beginning. The day before that collapse, this economy had only produced, in 7 years and 8 months, 2.5 million new jobs. The day before that collapse, median family income after inflation was $2,000 lower than it was the day I left office, after health care premiums had tripled and college costs had gone up 75%. Then it turned out that the economy, which bottomed out basically in the middle of 2009, went lower than we knew. The president was in office for more than another year, and the stimulus package had already passed before it turned out that instead of an almost 4% contraction in the economy, it went down 7.5%. So, what does all that mean? It means to get out of this fix, we got to do three things. We need a short-term growth strategy, even if we have to borrow the money to do it. The federal government can borrow money at less than 2% today. You know I hate debt, but you cannot get blood out of a turnip. You cannot balance a budget in a stagnant economy. And so we need a short-term growth strategy. We need a long-term plan to deal with the debt when growth returns. And in the middle, we got to clean up this housing mess, or we're never going to get the show on the road again and return to a full-time economy, full growth economy. Now, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, a liberal or conservative, one thing is indisputable. The president has offered a plan for short-term economic stimulus. He has offered proposals to make the housing crisis less severe, and he has offered his first down payment, and it's a big one, to reduce long-term debt by $3 trillion. It is now up to the United States Congress to act on those plans, and if they don't like them, to come up with better ideas. One thing I'd like to ask all of your ideas on is this. It became clear to me, first when I was governor, keep in mind, you all kept re-electing me when our economy was lousy. Until the year I ran for president, we only had 1 month when our unemployment rate was below the national average. But you knew we had a plan to change it. We were bringing back manufacturing. We were one of only 8 states in the country that grew manufacturing jobs in the 80s. We led the region in job growth, and in 1992, coincidentally, and I didn't know it was going to happen on October the 3rd when I was standing here, we ranked first or second in the country in new job growth all year long. But it took a long time. We had a strategy to do it. You have to have a source of new jobs in a big country like this every 5 to 8 years. My personal favorite is changing the way we produce and consume energy in a way that's good business, because you can create jobs in every town, in every small community, in every big city in the United States doing that. The opportunity is not limited by party philosophy or geography. I like that. I also think a commitment to rebuild our manufacturing base will. I think a commitment to increase our exports will. We can do better, but we have to do that. And there is no example of a country in the fix we're in that can balance the budget without a combination of spending cuts, the people who can afford it paying more, and growing the economy. And if you don't have economic growth, there is no combination of spending cuts or tax increases that can get blood out of a turnip. So, why am I saying all this? Because we made a decision here 20 years ago. All of you who threw your lot in, and come on, let's face it, on that day, my mother was the only person who thought I was going to be elected president. Hillary and Chelsea were undecided, though leaning positive. We just made a decision that the country needed a new kind of politics, a new kind of economics, a new commitment to get into the next century with the American dream alive and well. A commitment that would restore the middle class and give people who were poor a chance to work their way into it. And we decided to stop the politics of pitting one American against another, by race, by ethnicity, by gender, by income, by anything else. We decided, well, we tried all that for a while. Why don't we just work together and see how that works out? And I'm so glad we started here. In 1977, in January, on a very cold night, I held my first reception as a public official here when I became Attorney General. In 1979, as governor, with the help of Rose Crane, who still is out there, still got the scars to show for it, we began the effort to restore the Old Statehouse to its original condition. And many people have worked on that and done a brilliant job of giving us what we now treasure. And it symbolizes our past, our present, and our future. Not 30 years after this building was built, no, a little more than 30 years, right after the Civil War, when most white males, who were the only people voting back then, were disenfranchised as a result of having fought for the South, we had a governor's race here between a man named Brooks and a man named Baxter. And it was not clear who won. At least it was close enough that they were shooting at each other. And one group was over there by the Capitol Hotel, and the other group was trying to lodge here at the Capitol, and they were shooting at each other. The President of the United States was Ulysses Grant. And having been the commanding general in the Civil War, his authority was so great, he finally just said, "Baxter's the governor, get over it and stop this mess." President Grant then came to the Capitol Hotel, stood on that balcony you can see today. The Arkansas River was turned right after here and came in very close to our street, and they had a grand parade going by because they figured we had to stop fighting and get the show on the road. So I will tell you folks, in memory of one of the most important moments in the Old Statehouse's history, we have to stop fighting and get the show on the road. When we walked out of here, we started this 7-day-a-week, 24-hour campaign. Our first headquarters was in the old paint store over on 7th Street. I drove by here today just so I could see it one more time before I came in. Then we moved to the Arkansas Gazette building. The Gazette had recently closed. But in its glory days, it was one of the greatest newspapers in America and one of the most progressive voices for civil rights and human rights in the history of the country. And I kept hoping that the ghost of its progressive past would somehow sprinkle angel dust on our campaign and give us a good break. The journey begun here worked out pretty well for Americans. And I'm grateful for all you have done. I want to just do two more things. First of all, those of us here were not alone in this effort. And those who couldn't be here today were not alone. I have signed some 600 letters of condolences since I left the White House on the passing of people who helped me become president or who worked in one or both of my administrations. It began in the campaign when we lost Vic Razor, my Mid-Atlantic fundraising chairman, and the incomparable Paul Tully. In my first term, we lost Ron Brown, whom I love like a brother and may still be the greatest Commerce Secretary we ever had. And it has continued to the last 2 months when we lost Maria Haley and B.A. Rudolph. When I knew I was going to be a good governor in 1979 when I took my first trade mission abroad with Maria Haley, and we went into Hong Kong and we stayed in some high-rise hotel. I thought I was somebody. I'd never been anywhere before. And I was with Bill and Callie Brandon from Helen, and they said, you know, Maria says there's a bar upstairs with a band. And if you want to go up and just, you know, have a drink and listen to music one time before you go to bed, we can do it. We walked in and the band stopped playing and said, "Hi, Maria." So I figured Arkansas may be a landlocked state, but if the band in a hotel in Hong Kong knows my director's name, we're all right. Last night, when I got home, at the suggestion of someone who came up to me and told me, I went into one of the bathrooms in the apartment in the executive suite at the library, and I started opening the drawers, and B.A. Rudolph had left me a note there just a couple of weeks before she died. And all she said was, "Good digs. I'm glad I was along for the ride." So, in honor of all those people, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence and gratitude. Thank you. Now I want to say something to the young people who are here. I have a lot of time to study what's going on in America. I'm home alone a lot. My wife has a traveling job. So I keep reading all these surveys that say young people in the United States are getting discouraged. They're afraid they won't have a better future. At one level, I understand that, because things were pretty good for a long time and now they're not. But to all the young people, I would say, look, it's all right to be realistic. But to be discouraged about your future is a decision in advance to be disappointed. Nobody has a right to permanent prosperity. It has to be earned. Nobody has a right to a life free of challenges. It'd be boring anyway. At some time or another, every people are called upon to re-examine the premises of their nation's life. How people treat each other, what rights are extended to what people, and what they do to make a living and create a brighter future. To be young today is to live in a time of uncertainty and difficulty, but also a time of enormous opportunity. A time when you have the responsibility to reimagine the future. The uncertainties of the current moment do not have to exist a decade from now. It'll be determined by the decisions that we make, beginning with how we answer that big question about whether government is the problem or a necessary part of the solution. But first, you must make the decision not to give up. And not to give up in politics, not to give up in economics, not to give up in life. Harry and Linda Thomason, who couldn't be here today, made a bunch of great movies for me, but my favorite was one cataloging all the people and all the times people said I was deader than a doornail in the '92 campaign. I was declared dead so many times I could swear they were going to say I was the person buried in Grant's tomb. If you doubt what I say, go home tonight and watch the replay of today's Razorback game. Now, you're all cheering. I watched it and I was ecstatic, but come on, what chance do we have? We're playing one of the greatest offensive teams in America. We're down 18 points at halftime. We can't stop anybody. The line's pushing us 5 yards off. We're toast, right? Not a shot. Somebody forgot to tell the players to give up. So they kept playing the game. And every young person here should remember that. Pessimism and cynicism, they save you a lot of time. you don't have to go through the effort of trying to change things, and you get to be disappointed right away. But if you really want to restore the American dream, if you want to rebuild the middle class, if you want to give poor people their shot again, if you'd like to live in a country where immigrants are not enemies but can be a part of our common humanity again, you got to play the game. At the core of this country, there has always been an idea that if you work hard and play by the rules, you get a chance to live your dream and give your children a chance to chase theirs. No guarantee, but a chance for all. In order to do that, we have to believe, we have to think, and we have to act. That's what we tried to do for 8 good years. And for all of you who took me through those 2 campaigns, our earlier days here in Arkansas and those 8 years in Washington, I am profoundly grateful. Now another young president is facing similar challenges. I will say this. I suppose I'm pulling harder for him because he showed such good judgment in picking a Secretary of State. But I would be pulling for him regardless, because underlying those challenges is the same old debate about whether government is the problem or we need smart government and a changing economy working together to create the opportunities of tomorrow. For all of you who've helped me, I'd like to end this ceremony by just giving everybody a gold watch. Some of us are old enough to earn it. But America has never been a retirement party. And it isn't now. America is a constant invitation to suit up and play again. And so, if you're really proud of what we did, help a kid stay in school, hire somebody if you can, start a business if you can, make your voice heard. And remind people that conflict is necessary in life and can somehow be great for a political campaign. But America got to this point through cooperation, through striving relentlessly, repeatedly, through all the disappointments and all the setbacks and all the difficulties for the more perfect union of our founders' dreams. Maybe I am crazy as I age, but I am not pessimistic. I still believe in the promise of this country. I still believe that every place in America can be a place called hope. And if you really believe in what we did here all those years ago, if you're still proud of it, and most importantly, if you want it to happen again and give your kids and grandkids, and for some of you, your great-grandkids, what you know in your bones they deserve, play again. God bless you.